I read in my childhood that princes and princesses have this kind of weird superpowers, and one of them was of a princess to kiss a frog and turn him into a prince. So can you do that?
I wish it worked like that, but unfortunately it doesn't.
What kind of blood group do you guys have? Do you guys actually have like red blood, or is it like blue blood?
His blood is too blue to be
Too blue.
donated.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. How did your family react, if I may ask, when you said you wanted to become a graphic designer?
So actually I started as a photographer. That was more shocking than graphic designer. Like my father bought me a camera and said, okay, go and study photography. So
If you weren't allowed, what would you be doing?
oh, that is, I really don't know actually, because for me to arrive at graphic designing, I've also done production for a while. That was something that my family wasn't happy about.
When I decided that I wanted to study law, it was a huge battle at home because my dad was an engineer, my uncle is an engineer, and all my grandmother's brothers are engineers. They said, no way are you going to study arts. Are you a girl? That's what I was told.
They said that.
They said that.
Have you all ever been in situations that you'll have to go to your office that is so far but in the same palace,
Yes.
and you'll invented some other way to go there?
Yes. So initially, when I used to go from my room to my office or to my dining room, it was a long walk. Eventually, my daily steps were almost around 8 kilometers.
8 kilometers just for that.
Just for that, just walk up and down the entire floor. So then I got roller skates. A skateboard, I used to get a skateboard. I used to skate till my office. Initially, people wouldn't understand how I could go that fast without moving my legs.
What are your thoughts on modern feminism now?
I think modern feminism is a very complicated concept, to be honest, because I feel like not everyone takes it in the right direction, and I feel like a lot of people use it as a tag to misuse it.
Hello and welcome back to the Oddcast show. Last time we had a very wonderful episode with the royals. This time I'm going to ask them questions that the common man may dare not ask them because they may behead them. So I'm going to take that extra step and ask them to get that content for you guys. So welcome back to the show, guys. How you're doing?
Good.
Good.
So to start off, actually tell me that can you all really still execute people if they offend you all in any way?
No.
Even in your palaces?
No, I don't think so.
We wish we could maybe,
Yeah.
but no.
But do you still have like a hit list in case you did?
You never know.
No. You can't do it in
What
today's
about
world.
you?
I'm sure people have people that they don't like, right?
Yeah, but like
No, we are
I
not
was
killing
wondering.
anybody.
No, not going to kill anyone.
Okay. And speaking of royal blood, we've used the word blood too many times, but we are not spoken enough about that. What kind of blood group do you guys have? Do you guys actually have like red blood, or is it like blue blood? Can you all donate blood? What's
No,
up?
we are born blue-blooded, but our blood group is just like normal people.
Have you guys ever been in that kind of situation where you'll have to like donate or get blood or something, and then
I've
you'll have to
donated blood when there was COVID to help people.
I donate my blood every year.
Okay.
I've never donated my blood.
Okay.
His blood is too blue to be
Too blue.
donated.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. And what kind of food do you guys eat? Are you all allowed to eat non-veg? Is it covered in gold or what?
No, it's normal food, but it is a little exotic every day.
Yeah.
Like what?
So for me, I eat a lot of non-veg and veg food.
Mhm.
So there's a balance of both for me.
Do you guys have platters like how they show in the movies? Like there's like some 7 knives, 7 forks, and you have to work yourself
I
in.
mean, not forks, but dishes. But now I think we're all dieting because you can't eat 7 dishes every meal. So it's, yeah.
What about you? What is your?
I tried that for a
Yeah.
week, but that didn't go too well. I started getting weight.
Because now we don't have those many activities also.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
We are not roaming around on horses. We are roaming around in cars.
Yeah.
So the calories are not burning enough. So we can't afford to have a 9-course meal in today's
Yeah.
world.
We had to cut down the courses,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
And I think now we've come down to 3 or 4.
Watch our waist. I mean, that's the most important,
From
right?
an 8 to 9 course meal to a 3 or 4 course meal.
Right. Since you spoke about activities, are there any kind of specific activities you all did as kids and you all still do now, or you all do something different now?
I'm into a lot of off-roading, um, and a lot of trekking. I love trekking. So, and I usually go to all the forts that Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj has built and has been on. And that was always my aim, to go to all the forts that he's been or he has captured.
How about you guys?
So I used to play fencing for my college, and tennis when I was in school, and golf in my spare time. And I like classical music, the family tradition sort of classical music.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother used to sing, my father used to sing, my great grandfather and his fathers before him used to promote classical music. So I think that was passed down to me as well. I enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. How about you?
I think sport-wise for me, I played normal sports only as a child, like table tennis and all that. And everyone in my family plays golf, but me. Wasn't my cup of tea. I thought it was quite boring. But yeah, that's about it.
Are there any kind of royal sports that you guys used to do or do, like how you mentioned archery, or you all do like kind of polo or something like that?
Yeah, but no, not
No,
not today.
not any
no.
longer.
Do you
Not
guys
anymore.
have you ever like thought about or looked forward to sort of implementing that in your balances?
We were thinking of starting a polo
Yeah, we wanted
club.
to.
That would actually be really
So what
good.
happened was I actually wanted to start playing polo, but then by the time I was allowed to take my own decisions, I was too old to learn polo. So then Malojiraje and I, we decided that we'll start a polo club in Maharashtra. We'll start like a thing again.
Mm-hmm. And what is the scene with, since they all had so many restrictions growing up, what was the scene with the dating? Because once you reach that age where people start dating each other and then you all are stuck with these restrictions, did you all have anything like that?
Well, I suppose it's not a taboo anymore, right? I mean, India is a free country. Let's just say that.
How about you guys?
Can I date? I can date. Yeah, it's not like it's restricted. But yeah,
In what way? Like, are you allowed to not date a certain religion or?
no, nothing of those sorts. I mean, I wouldn't want to go there, honestly.
Okay, and how
Yeah.
about you?
As from the family, I was always restricted from getting into all of these things. But now I'll have to get married someday. I'm looking for a marriage now.
Is there a certain kind of calibered person you have to marry? Or?
See, basically, you have to marry someone who understands you and understands your tradition. So that is why you always marry people. Why people got married in their same caste or same religion
So the thoughts align.
So the thoughts are the same. So you don't have to teach the person who has gotten married into
Yeah.
the family all the customs, because that those customs are already followed in the other house.
Yeah.
So that is why people usually marry or want to marry in the same caste and religion.
Mm-hmm. Since you've spoken about the caste system and so much of historical stuff covered in the last episode, I was wondering what do you guys think of the society today versus the society that time? Because from what I understand is that right now it's a right-based society, but that time it was a duty-based society.
So when it comes to duty-based society, there are less conflicts. But when it comes to a right-based society, there are too many conflicts.
What
what
are
I
your
believe.
thoughts on all this?
Too many opinions and too much chaos, I think, with the rights, because everyone is free to say what they feel and what they think, I guess.
Yeah, I feel, one should just do as one is given to do and then expect the reward later on. Because I think that just makes life simpler. If one says, I want this and I'm doing this for this, or I have a right to this and that's why I'm going to do such and such thing, then one misses the point of the journey. And rather than focusing on the reward or the destination, one misses the point of the journey. So I think if you just do your duty, you automatically get onto a particular path, which takes you on a journey, and then the rest becomes history.
Less chaotic also.
Less chaotic
less
because,
chaotic.
it's...
Right. But does that mean that in a duty-based society, people like yourselves didn't have rights?
No, we all had.
For example, inheriting the kingdom after whatever and
See, when you take it as a duty, you do it willingly. But when it comes as a right, then you find ways to mend it.
Yeah, it
is
becomes
what I feel.
optional, right? A
It
right
becomes
is
optional.
optional to exercise, but duty is compulsory.
And I feel
Right.
like back in the day, the royals were also doing their duties to be able to get that inheritance, or so to speak, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It
and
was a different kind of duty than a common
Yeah,
man.
what one often forgets is that when you're living in a palace or when you're working out of a palace, your palace is your office. And that is what modern royals, or let's say royals for 100 years ago were doing. When they were living in their palace was their office.
Yeah.
So they never had this concept of weekends or vacations or
yeah.
any such thing.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was just for everyone else. But the person who was living in the palace was always on duty. Even at night, he was on duty. Right? That was the whole concept of a palace.
And I also think that a lot of the concepts of this feminism stuff was very distorted back then versus now. Because is that really true? Is that really true that women were treated unfairly and in the kingdoms?
See,
When it was a proper kingdom part of that back in that era, I don't think it was they were mistreated. They were just given what they could do, basically. And that is how the society even today is. But now what has happened is there are a lot of misconceptions that have come up, and that is why it's become like a right,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a right.
and that
you
is
know?
why it's become more chaotic again.
And
Yeah.
see, I mean, in the Patwardhan states, for example, I was reading a case law and they were talking about how, I think it was Zamkhandi state, that they had given women the right to property, I think 120 years ago or something, in 1880 or something like that. There was a case law at that time. So I think India, frankly, was behind compared to what our states were, because the Deccan, or what we were called, we were the Deccan princes, basically. We had the area called the Deccan. So we were a more advanced society comparatively to the rest of the country. So as far as women's rights and things are concerned, we had women's education from like 100 years ago in our states, or we had women's rights to property 100 years ago, because that was all ingrained in our mythology and our philosophy and all those things. It was the British concept of feminism and this thing. Why did they need it? They needed it because they didn't give their women the same rights that we gave our women in India, right?
Right. And what are your thoughts on modern feminism now?
I think modern feminism is a very complicated concept, to be honest, because I feel like not everyone takes it in the right direction, and I feel like a lot of people use it as a tag to misuse it, so to say, like to get
A certain right.
a certain right, like they want to use it to their benefit or twist it around so that it works in their favor. So I think that's a little unfair. But like he said also, like in Bhor as well, one of the first schools for women in Maharashtra was built in Bhor by one of my great grandfathers, where there was free education for all women. So
Right.
Yeah, we had a university called Uma Vidyalaya, which was set up in both our provinces, in Modnim in Solapur district and Lakshmeshwar, which is close to Hubli in Karnataka, and only women. And of course, we had Kanya Vidyalaya in Miraj city itself, which was for women only. So
Even like most of the royal families emphasized more on education because because they had such great infrastructure, all the states had such great infrastructure. To enjoy that infrastructure, you needed education. So even like in Akkalkot, we have 3 girls' schools, and then we have the Akkalkot Education Society. So all of these families majorly concentrated more on education, and that is why what we have in the Deccan states is very different than what we have in the north.
yeah.
Right. Right. And so there's one question I have to ask, that a lot of movies start off like this, where somebody goes and opens some sort of casket or something in someone's kingdom, and then some demon rises or something like that. Do you all have any sort of stories like that from your kingdoms? Any sort of curses or something like that?
Curses, families, in the olden days used to speak about a few curses. But then again, I don't know how far to believe them or not to believe
There
them.
are many stories around it, right?
See, when you see an old property now, people come up with stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is how they
Horror
relate
movies
to all of
maybe.
these things. And,
I mean,
and in
yeah.
movies also they show now you're walking, the lights are turning up
Yeah.
on and off. Like when I'm renovating my palace right now, so my electric consultant asked me, like, do you want those motion sensors? I was like,
Oh.
please don't get them in the palace.
No way.
That's not going to be any beneficial for us. Let us have the old school way where you click a button and let the light come on.
What about you? What is like the most absurd story you've heard?
Well, not absurd. I think it's linked to the fact that the Patwardhans, we attacked the Shingeri Mutt in Karnataka while we were on a campaign. I think it was very similar to what Operation Blue Star was. There were sort of terrorists in the mutt, and then we had to go and get them out and get rid of them or kill them, basically. But what happened alongside that was the people who were with the army were not directly employed with the army. The scavengers or the skirmishers called the Pindaris, those guys really looted the place, and they say that the family is cursed because of that, but we don't know.
Right. So, but do you all have any sort of, I don't know, I think the best word for it is treasure, because I had gone to this temple in the south called Padmanabha Swami temple, and over there at the bottom they say that a lot of serpents are guarding it, and a lot of scientists have tried to break in, and it's kind of booby trap, but when they go there, then they get disoriented or they die or something really bad happens. Do you all have any kind of forbidden stuff in the palace that you are aware of, but you wouldn't dare touch it because of what you've heard about it?
There are rumors that there are a lot of hidden treasures under the palaces. And then
I think it goes with every palace.
Every palace has.
That, oh, have you gone
And
hunting?
then we have these funny people coming and telling you, okay, like it's here and it's there. I think in my previous generations, people have went for this treasure hunt, but I don't know what happened really.
Okay. I hope like you still know of them, and like I hope they haven't disappeared or something.
Oh no, I hope so. I hope not.
Oh, you don't know?
I don't know.
How about you guys? Have you ever sincerely believed anything like that in anything from your parents, grandparents?
Not particularly.
No, I've heard stories
Yeah,
about how a priest once stole a jewelry piece from one of the deities in our temples, and he died because he stole it. And then after that, my great grandfather, he decided that all our temples should be free of idols, real jewelry, because people get tempted to steal it, and
Then bad things happen.
things happen. So it's safer to.
And the reason why all these bad things happen was because we came from a mantra yoga. And now
What exactly
today,
does that mean?
Mantra yoga. Mantra yoga is where the mantras were chanted and things were built and things were protected by using old mantras. But today we are in a very technological world. So we are in a very different era. So those treasures which are being covered or protected by the mantras, if we know how to reverse the mantras, is when I feel these treasures will be freely operated by a lot of people. Because when you mentioned about the temple you were talking about, people, I think the government also tried to open that temple and a lot of people died.
Yeah.
Is what I heard
Something
from the
like that. I
news.
mean, there's
Yeah.
many of them like that. Right. And speaking of temples, do you all have any kind of private temple or temples that sort of bind you all together as royal families?
As royal families bind together.
That sort of connects you in some way or the other.
So yeah, the Tulsa Bhavani temple
It's a Shakti Peeth, right?
is a Shakti Peeth also, and the Marathas believe in Tulsa Bhavani. The Kul Devat of most of the Marathas is Tulsa Bhavani.
I heard Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj.
Maharaj
also
is-
I
yeah,
visited
yeah,
that and I
yes.
saw that staircase from where he
It's a
comes.
beautiful temple. And because all of the Marathas go to one temple, we end up meeting at the temple on such
Like
big
a congregation
occasions.
place, something like that.
Yes.
Okay, how about you guys?
So I would say maybe Pandharpur in Maharashtra is one of the main places of Lord Vishnu. That's a very important temple in our region. And then of course Datta Maharaj and his Samprada, so his entire lineage is very important because
And now what has happened in today's world is we are moving towards religion also again. And since we are moving towards religion, a lot of people are coming together on big festive events, and that is another way of again meeting and greeting people.
Do you see that happening in my age group also? Because I would honestly say otherwise.
I have seen a lot of youngsters come to Akkalkot as well, but then they come because they are either forced or they're either told by their parents
Exactly.
to go. But then see what happens is at an early age, until you don't come or until you don't experience, you don't
Then
believe
you won't
in
know.
it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So until and unless you come there, you will not know what the power and the energy of such places are.
That's kind of like how you all also kind of got into it, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yes,
not
yes.
because
Yeah.
someone told you that you
Yeah.
have to read all this, but were you all made to read any kind of certain scriptures
No.
as part of the tradition while growing up?
I mean, we
There
were
used to
asked to
be-
like learn basic things that were
Like
part
prayers
of our,
or
yeah,
things
prayers,
that you say,
shlokas, mantras,
shlokas, mantras,
Nothing
things like
related
that.
to
Hymns.
stories of how this originated or why this happened, especially for you because you say that your entire family tree started from Lord Brahma.
Yeah.
So anything like
But
that?
then it started from Lord Brahma, but then it went on to the Kshatriya end, where we were the people who would fight the wars. And then when we were fighting wars, there was no time for us to do any of the religious activities.
How about you guys?
So apart from the main temples like Malojiraje said, Tulsa Bhavani and Pandharpur temple, we all have our own temples in our respective cities, right? So in Miraj we have the Ganpati Mandir at the Ganpati Talab. Then we've got the Vishnu Panchayatan, which is actually a very different concept. So Sangli is known for the Ganpati Panchayatan temple. Miraj is not actually known for the Ganpati temple, but it's actually known for the Vishnu Panchayatan temple. So it has Lord Vishnu and the Devi next to each other, and then all the other gods surrounding that. So that's a very unique concept. And then, of course, we've got the Shiva temple on the banks of the river Krishna. And it's known as the Markanteshwar temple. And if you've read a lot of mythology, there's this person in mythology called Markanteshwar, who was given a blessing by Lord Shiva.
Yeah. Is Markan there, right? Markandeya Muni,
Markandeya, yeah. So he was given a blessing by Lord Shiva. Now, we don't know how true or whatever it was, but they say that this particular temple is one of the places where he was based at that spot. And then, then he passed. He got his blessings over there.
Okay, and how
And
about
that
you?
is how, when he spoke about the Panchayatan Ganpati temple, that is when I realized Akkalkot also has a Ganpati Panchayatan temple. In that temple, when I went for the very first time, it was in complete ruins. But the energy over there felt so beautiful and so nice that I sat there and I had my further meetings in the temple only. But now what I've started doing is, Swami Samarth Maharaj used to have a money in his hand, a small pebble, and it is called the Surya Mani. So what I have started doing is to promote that Panchayatan Ganpati temple. I've started giving the Surya Mani darshan to all the bhakts who come to Akkalkot on Guru Purnima. That's one day of Akkalkot where a lot of bhakts of Swami Samarth Maharaj come to Akkalkot. And I realized that is one day I can keep the darshan because majority of the people can take darshan of the same. There's one more temple in Akkalkot is it's in the old palace. It's Varaha Avatar
Of Lord Vishnu.
of Lord Vishnu, and it is a beautiful, and it's one of a very, very rare temples in the old palace. And also, when you enter Akkalkot, we have a Khandoba Mandir temple where Swami Maharaj first came there and sat for over 15 days. And that is where he showed his first chamatkar to a fakir who was making fun of him. He took a hookah, and from a normal hookah which was not burning or there was no coal over it, he could take out some smoke out of it. That's when people realize he's some great saint who has come to Akkalkot.
Okay, so you had mentioned that you treat your palaces like your offices, at least in the olden days. So, and from what I gather based on historical context is that the palaces were really big and the kingdoms were really big. Much more than I can actually visualize because the houses that we live in right now are much smaller in comparison to the palaces. So, sometimes have you all ever been in situations that you'll have to go to your office that is so far but in the same palace and you'll invented some other way to go there?
Yes. So Initially, when I used to go from my room to my office or to my dining room, it was a long walk. And anytime anyone would come, I had to walk back from my room to the office and back. Eventually, my daily steps were almost around 8 kilometers.
8 kilometers just for that.
Just for that, I would just walk up and down the entire floor. Then I realized, ki this is not my cup of tea. So then I got roller skates. A skateboard. I used to get a skateboard. I used to skate till my office. But then there's a window where people can see. Initially, people wouldn't understand how I could go that fast without moving my legs. Because see, the palace is open from all sides.
Yeah.
And there's a ledge.
Correct.
So they could not see what's
going down below.
Underneath. And then people would just keep wondering, how is this man
What
just
is
hovering
Raja doing?
over?
You had a special power.
But then one more incident I would rather share with you is in the night when you have to use the washroom, the bedrooms are really big. The dressing room is equally big as the bedroom.
Could you give us some context as to how big is it? Is like your bathroom as big as this room?
Bigger than this. It's
bigger than this room?
It's 20 by 20 feet.
But like, what are you going to put in a bathroom that's so big? I mean,
So in the olden days, people, I think, would come and bathe the young family or whoever was bathing there. But what happens is all of these bathrooms, if you see, they have two accesses. One is for the family to come and use the washroom, and one was for the Jamadar to come and clean the washroom. So now that I stay in the palace, when I wake up in the night to use the washroom, you have to cross the room, to cross the dressing room and cross the washroom. By the time you come back, your sleep is all gone.
okay. And how big is the bedroom in comparison to the bathroom?
It's the same size.
It's the same size.
It's the same size.
Is there a reason as to why it's the same like that? Or as to...
I could shed some light on that.
Sure.
So maybe because even I didn't know what was going on exactly. So, but I found this open bathroom. We found an open bathroom, like in the center of one of our palaces. There was a courtyard, and and it was apparently the bathroom. So I didn't understand what's going on. So I asked a couple of people, they didn't understand what was going on. They said, oh, maybe they would just have a bath in the open. But that's not what it was. And I asked a historian, and then he told me that basically the concept of bathing was not to have a shower, because there was no concept of showers we have in the modern day. So there would be like people who would stand around because you would need like buckets of water, or maybe sometimes you would bathe with milk, or maybe you would bathe with something else, or like later on you'd bathe with like attar, which is like perfume and all those kind of things. And for that purpose, you would have like people around you to like supply those things to you. So, or like hot water. So if you've seen like the abhishek of like a god, so how they give a god a bath, or you know, like how they do the abhishek, something like that.
It's treated the same way.
What happened to us. So that's why maybe the bathrooms inside the palace, when they were built big, so that people could be there as well.
What about you?
Same. Since it's all in Maharashtra and similar regions, I feel like it's geographically pretty similar. Pretty similar.
Okay. And have you all ever seen something in your palace, something like what you just mentioned regarding the toilet, that really confused you all, and you all had to ask someone to make you understand that why is it like that? Anything, something scientific or something like that?
I don't know about scientific, but like he mentioned, the bathroom has 2 doors. So like that in Bhor Palace, every room has 3 doors to get in and get out. And every room has like a kind of like a balcony or a gallery outside. So like he's saying, for the people who used to work for the kings, for them to not actually enter your room directly, that whole passage will be there, and there'll be entries and exits so that they enter and exit without disturbing what's happening inside the rooms, kind of.
How do y'all picture the olden ways in which people used to live in palaces versus the way you all live? Is it really that different apart from the food, or like what is it like?
It's a very quiet place, if you see, because palaces are in the center of a huge area. So the noise that you create is what you can hear.
That's it.
The smells that the food is cooked in your
Yeah.
house, that is the aroma you get. So when I come to Pune, usually, if I have stayed in Akkalkot for a long duration, I can hear what's happening in my neighbor's house. I can smell what's happening in my, what's cooking in my neighbor's house. And it's very difficult for me to, for my brain to not get those, because it takes time for you to not
Adjust.
hear
Huh.
what you don't want to hear, basically.
Right. In movies like Bahubali, I've seen that the bedroom ceilings, generally even the whole palace, are incredibly high.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like it's basically like you can almost like not see them. It's that high, and they're relatively open. Are your bedrooms anything like that?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there a reason as to why that happens?
So I think the concept was to like create. So in our palace, for example, the ceilings are like 30 feet or 35 feet high.
On average.
Or yeah, throughout.
Oh wow.
So even in the bedrooms, halls, everywhere, right? So I think I don't know what the concept was exactly, because we didn't have ACs as such
Yeah.
Yeah.
at
Of
that
course.
time. We had ACs, like we use ACs now, but at that time when it was built, I don't think there was a concept of AC. So I think it was for the ventilation, because wind at that height is faster than wind at the ground level. So
And
it
also
allows
the
you to
hot
get-
air rises up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to have higher ceilings is to get fresh air
To make it
coming
cooler.
inside the room and make it a little cooler. And even if you see, they have these vents on the top. So the hot air would rise and get out of the vent,
Right.
and the fresh air would come inside the room. That
Right,
is why the ceilings are usually high up.
Right. There's another aspect of this that I've heard, that if you make a normal person such as myself who sleeps in normal bedrooms sleep in a room of a ceiling that high, I probably wouldn't get sleep for a long time. It would take me a lot of time to adjust to that kind of.
Once the room is dark, you can't see
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
No. I mean, no. It's not about.
You
It's
don't
not
know how
about.
high the ceiling is.
No, it's
How
not.
will you
It's not
know?
about. It's not about seeing. It's about the feeling of the whole openness. Because once you've seen the room, you know, like that I have a lot of space around me. So what one person told me is that sometimes there's this thing that a lot of people like to call aura now, or vibes.
Okay.
And they say that sometimes your aura is kind of trapped in the way which you sleep, because you have no idea what's happening to your body once you're in deep sleep. So once you enter that state of deep sleep by a lot of trial and error for a normal person like me in a bedroom like yours, then your aura kind of expands because it reaches the top of the ceiling like that, something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
Have you ever heard something like that before?
No, this is the first time I'm listening to this.
I've
concept.
never heard that before, but I understand what you're saying. I mean, sometimes when you sleep in a different place, you feel uneasy.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what we're talking
I mean, it
about.
depends on how different it is from your usual environment.
Right, yeah. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, I've experienced that. In
Right. Are there any kind of other customs that you all are following in terms of learning from your ancestors, that like, for example, if you wanted to grow up and become the king and you were the crown prince, then you have to have great administration skills.
Yes.
Is there any other skill that you all are learning in your kingdoms that aren't taught in schools?
So when you end up meeting a lot of people, which happens in most of the kingdoms, you end up learning a lot from them. And so every day is a learning experience when you're staying in Akkalkot. Basically, when I stay in Akkalkot, or where he stays in Miraj, or she stays in Bhor. So what happens is we end up learning a lot from the people we meet also. This is what I have
Yeah.
generally experienced in Akkalkot as.
I mean, having grown up in like a city and going to a semi-urban area, one realizes that there's so much more to life than what we just see, or what is popular culture. I mean, there's so many more perspectives. There's so much diversity. Even in the way that we interact with people in cities is very different to the way that you would interact in a rural setting or a semi-urban
That had happened to me when
setting.
when I moved to Akkalkot for the very first time. It was during lockdown, so I was in Akkalkot for almost 9-10 months. I was in Akkalkot. So when I came back from Akkalkot to Pune and I started interacting with shopkeepers and whoever I was interacting with in Pune, people were getting very scared. So I went for a dinner and I asked my cousins, ki, like, what has happened to Pune? Why are people getting so scared? And then they corrected me by telling me ki it is not who they have changed. It is your body language which has become really rough. And because of that, people are getting scared. So that is when I realized ki I cannot only stay in Akkalkot, but I need a little touch of civilization to get the reality check of what's happening in the country or what's happening in the world. Because when you are staying in a smaller city and a smaller village, what happens is you tend to get disconnected with the world, is what I've experienced in Akkalkot.
Based on what y'all have heard about your entire history of your entire armed forces, uh, if all three of you were to go to war with each other, who will win?
No, we would never fight because we share borders with each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah, but in case there's a kind of conflict or
No,
something.
we
We
should.
would
I don't
be a
think.
very strong alliance
Yeah,
for
we had
someone
a
else
very
to beat.
strong alliance.
That is how the Deccan states were. We had the Sayadris to hide ourselves and protect ourselves. And that is where the guerrilla warfare came into existence.
Right.
Which is used by most of the countries all over the world now.
Are there still any kind of places in places like Sayadri that you all see that are sort of not just forts but hideouts that people don't really know of but still surprise you?
Yeah, if you go to Aurangabad or I have seen a lot of these hideout places because I used to trek a lot in Aurangabad, and I never realized ki what are these little windows on a random mountain made for. And then I got a local guide to tell me about it. That's when he told me ki if you sit in this little cave of what has been built, and then you have the access of almost 3 mountains. So if you can see an enemy coming towards you, they used to whistle, and that is how the word of mouth would go to the
Right.
actual kingdom where the forces would get ready to get for war.
Are there any kind of customs that modern society right now would find absurd? For example, like how you all mentioned eating on silverware, silver plated stuff. Then are there any other customs that you all used to follow that people don't really know about right now, or you still want to follow something that?
Most of the customs are basically now they have turned into festivals, is what I would say.
They're all summarized in our festivals. The
Festivals.
festivals that we celebrate, whether it's with the public or in our own homes, is where you would see all our rituals and customs and traditions being followed mainly.
And after India gained independence from the British, this whole narrative of the royalties and everything changed a lot. Like, you all, unfortunately or fortunately, you all have to tell me now, lost a lot of your economic and political influence, and the government came in and everything. What are your thoughts on that?
See, in a way, if you see, it's good also and bad also in a way. See, if you have for example, if you have a mad king, then what do? That entire generation that town doesn't get to benefit from any of the things or any of the skilled labor that they have. But if you have, on the other hand, if you have a very, very smart and a very, very ambitious king, the kingdom grows to another level only completely. So what I feel is after the independence, the king had nothing to do.
See, I would contradict Malojiraje on one point over there, on the Mad King point. Again, this is a great myth that should be busted. That if there was a Mad King, then what? Will the state go into peril, or everyone will die, or he can just go and burn people in his whatever, like we see in Game of Thrones, he goes and burns people with his dragon, or whatever he can do in a modern state. I think that is a very big myth that needs to be busted, because that's not how most Indian princes were. Because we had a regulator. Technically speaking, the British government regulated us, and we had local self-government in most of our states. In all the big urban pockets, for example, Miraj, we had a municipal corporation which was elected by the people in 1900 itself, or around that time. Or many other princely states in India were actually constitutional monarchies. They were not absolute monarchies. So this concept that the ruler could do anything he wanted is absolutely wrong. Because there was a constitution that was enforced, and there were courts of law in our states as well, which were not only presided by us. There were proper judges, and there was a proper legal system. And in case, some prince did something that was really bad, then you could go to the regulator, which is technically the British government, or you could go to the Chamber of Princes, which was the collective of where all the princes would sit, also known as the Narendra Mandal. Or you could go to like the representative house of the Indian people. There was a legislative assembly of all the people of British India, not of the states. Yeah.
And since we spoke a little bit about animals, have you all ever heard of any kind of animal in your royal bloodline history that has kind of surprised you, that we had this animal also.
No,
Like a pet at home.
Yeah, like not exactly a pet, kind of like how Mike Tyson has a tiger, like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
like that.
We used to have leopards in our palace grounds. We used to have these two leopards that were kept because my great great grandfather was a avid shikari. We used to go on these hunting expeditions back.
So like
during-
live leopards.
Yeah, like real leopards. We had trained them in the art of hunting deer. Of course, they would go and hunt deer, and they kept. It was very weird. But yeah, even today there are some items like the chains. We found these huge chains. What is this for? Is it for like a swing or something? And my grandfather said, "No, I've seen. We had these leopards, and they had to be controlled with chains because
elephants were one of the
elephants.
elephants were there.
Elephants, yeah.
Let me see. I've also found a lot of uniforms of a lot of horses.
Yeah.
A lot of
So
Uniforms for horses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
because when
Do
we
you mean
would
like armors?
not armors,
No.
but these were all ceremonial
Yeah,
outfits
ceremonial,
for
like-
all the
Clothes
Clothes
and
and
necklaces and like strange things which we wouldn't normally see.
if I were to visit any of your palaces or all of them with the image of what I get in movies, I'm at the big massive door of the palace with a lot of guards who are standing with spears on the whole uniform. Then I go and it's all grand and there's a lot of this big fountains and everything. How accurately do your palaces fit that description?
I don't think there are people with spears anymore, but the grandeur
Grandeur is
exists
there.
because that's the scale of the palace at the end of the
Yeah.
day. We have gardens around that are maintained, so all that is there, but you won't find the people with the spears.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the grandeur of the architecture itself is beautiful. I mean,
Yeah, the
it's very
scale.
different
Yeah.
from what we have in North India or what we find down south. I mean, what we have in Maharashtra and around in northern Karnataka is very different because we were always at war because we were in the middle. So our states were always going to war. In like Rajasthan, they didn't have war for the last 300 years before integration into India. But we were fighting all the way up until the 1800s, 1820.
Yeah,
We were at war. So the concepts were very different. The way our palaces were built was built with the more conservative mindset because we were always trained you need to conserve your money so that in case you have to go to war you have cash reserves
Right,
with you.
right.
That kind of a
So you mentioned that the horses had uniforms that that most people probably aren't aware of, or even if they are, then they don't know the purpose. So what exactly?
So
are they for?
basically, those horses were ceremonial horses who would stand during the Dasara festival or any of the other festivals, and the uniform would usually have zari over it and the crest of the royal family onto the uniform itself.
So you said crest? What exactly is the royal crest like?
The Akkalkot crest says Satyameva Jayate under it. So when India got independence, they wanted a motto for the country, and so they stumbled upon the Akkalkot crest, and that's when So if you see the motto of our country today, the country of India is Satyameva Jayate.
In all the courts
In
and
all the
this.
courts, all everywhere you see. So that has come from the Akkalkot royal family. So the government of India back then wrote to the then king, that was Vijay Singh Maharaj, saying ki we would like to take the crest and we would like to pay you royalty for it. But then Vijay Singh Maharaj said ki we don't want any royalty. We've been using this crest from 1707. So let us also have the permission to use the crest, and you also can incorporate Satyameva Jayate into the Indian constitution also. So it is from such a small state. So it was a big contribution for such a large country.
Right.
And that is something I am very, very proud of.
Is there something that you would like to say about your crest as well?
So we have a very complicated crest, to be honest. It's based completely on Shankaraji Narayan, the first Pantsachiv, his life and his contributions, kind of. So, like he said, Satyameva Jayate, the motto on our crest is Ten Takte Na Bhunjitaha, which basically kind of means that you enjoy God's gifts while you have them, but you should be ready to let them go when the time
Oh,
comes.
Wow.
That is what the motto on the crest is. And then there are all these symbols, like there is a ink and an ink pen, which symbolizes how he started as a clerk and an accountant. Then there are swords, which also talks about how he was a great soldier and a warrior.
Right.
So that's the Pantsachiv family crest.
Right. And yours?
So the Miraj family crest has Lord Ganpati in the middle, and on the sides it has two, you can say, panthers or tigers or something, which are actually seated. Not seated. They're on all fours. And the family words are Shri Ganpati Charni Tatpar, which basically means at the feet of Lord Ganpati, because of the beginning of
Yes.
our family. But there's also a story. I mean, I don't know how true it is, but Arthur Wellesley, who was the Duke of Wellington, he was in his southern India campaign, and he passed through Miraj, and they say that our crest originated from around that period when he was passing through, because he also has their crest also has a set of tigers on the sides. Otherwise, there was no relevance to having tigers or panthers in our crest. They say it came from that, but we don't know that for sure.
One very important question that I wanted to ask is, what exactly do you royal people do to chill? Do you all like go and shoot arrows at someone, or like?
No, we like hang out with our friends, go out for a drink, maybe chill out.
What are your favorite places to hang out in? Places like Pune, or if you all go abroad, then
So what happens is when I come to Pune, in Akkalkot, I don't get to see any mountains or huge water bodies. So the first thing I do when I come to Pune is go to Murshi, or you go to Khadakwasla, or any of the mountains where you can just see mountains, lush green terrains and water bodies, what my eyes crave for. Because Akkalkot, if you come to the palace, and from the tower of the palace, if you see, there is 45 kilometers straight. There is not a single mountain, not a single water body, and not a single obstacle on the way.
Just flat.
Just flat land straight away until Miraj, I guess.
Really?
Yeah, because when I traveled to Miraj, the only mountain I saw was when I was almost about to reach Miraj. That's when that's my landmark. I'm always sleeping in the car. I look at the mountain alaka. It's like, yeah, mountain has come now. Okay, Miraj has come now.
So I'm lucky like that. Bhor is surrounded by mountains.
Yeah,
and
you
there's
guys
a
are in
river
like a
and
what
from the-
mountainous region.
Yeah, from the
like
terrace we can see the river flowing next to
So
the
my
Vada and
favorite
stuff.
place, if you ask me, is Switzerland, because it's again lush green. Austria.
and how about you guys?
I would say London is the favorite hangout spot.
Did you
Not in obviously in India, but generally. But in India, I would say, Pune is great. Mahabaleshwar is nice. Goa is fun. A lot of fun in Goa.
I'd say in India, I like to
Yeah.
travel to a lot of wildlife sanctuaries.
Yeah.
I love wildlife photography, so I go to a lot of sanctuaries around, like Kanha, Pench, Corbett, all these places.
and speaking of stuff to chill, do you guys like to watch movies and stuff? Is that part of your?
I used to watch a lot of movies, but now I've gotten a lot of responsibilities, so I have no time to watch movies. So one movie, it takes me 3-4 days to watch nowadays.
3 days to finish one movie.
Yeah, because
He's very good, I take a month to finish
because I
a movie.
start a movie and I doze off.
Guys, what
Like
are you doing?
how when I was in school, I used to open a book and I used to doze off. Now it's become the blue screen. As soon as I start the screen, I switch off.
But why does it make you sleep like that?
Because my days in Akkalkot are very, very hectic and very, very heavy. So by the time I come to my room to chill, I am completely tired. But then since childhood, I've been into watching something before I sleep.
Yeah.
So, but now I start the TV and I go off to sleep. So for one movie to finish, it takes almost 4 days.
What about you guys?
I watch a lot of content. I love watching movies, series. I watch anime. So
Do you guys like look up to any specific actor, actress?
I would say that there are specific types of movies that I do like. I do like period dramas and period movies because you get a lot of inspiration from them to like understand history and culture and
Right.
the way we were brought up or that kind of stuff. And also the sets are beautiful. I mean,
Yeah. Do you guys look up to any kind of politicians in the country?
well,
Since you all are kind of like royal people and you all need the kind of leadership and administrative skills, do you all have any kind of idol politicians that you look up to? Someone you don't like?
No, see, Akkalkot family has never been into
Yeah.
any of the political scenarios. So
I think all of us are quietly
Yeah.
contributing to
So-
society as we can
Yeah,
without
yeah.
getting into the.
so even the
Politics.
Miraj family has never been in active politics. So we would like to be that way. But I would say all of us look up to like spiritual leaders and spiritual gurus and things like that, because that is something that adds value to society and is not political,
and is what is needed today
It's
also.
what's needed.
Do you guys read books? You guys read a lot?
I do.
No, I don't.
But I read a lot of fiction. So
I
And
used
how
to
do you-
read a lot of Agatha Christie when I was growing up, but then it got a bit too much because
Yeah.
every time I watched a movie or Hindi movie
You
or
knew
English
the
movie,
plot?
I knew who the murderer was.
Yes.
It was like, oh, why am I watching a thriller? So I
It
stopped.
became that predictive, like for all movies and stuff.
Yeah, because I knew it, because I read every one of them. So it was only so many murderers as there could be, right?
Yeah, makes sense. How about you?
No, I was never into reading. I have a visual memory than word memory.
Nice.
So I
That's-
remember,
that's pretty rare,
that is
no?
how I remember faces but not names.
Right.
That is what I'm trying to improve on now, right now.
Any specific app that you guys use?
I'm not a very technology person. I use my phone only to meet people or to ask where they are or to reach a destination. Other than that, I don't use my phone.
Do
very
you not
regularly.
use it for any kind of social media or something that to interact with people outside your?
I used to have my accounts, but now my team manages most of my accounts. So I'm not on social media as such.
Okay. How about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I used Instagram a lot, used a lot of those reels and stuff, but now I don't get the time to, scroll through reels and,
And I also feel it's a waste of time to
It's
just
a-
keep
yeah.
scrolling
Yeah.
and scrolling.
Yeah,
and
we call it doom scrolling because like you don't know what you're up to and you're just like,
Absolutely, yeah, it's very scary.
I think they should also change the algorithm in our country to what people see. And if they see what is a little more creative and
but then the doom scrolling ends.
let it end. It should end someday.
For the algorithm to keep you hooked onto it. It's not going
she's
to
saying
work.
it from a business perspective.
From
there.
their perspective, it's not
Yeah.
going to work, so it's never going to change.
What about you? What's your take?
Since I'm a graphic designer, I do use like Pinterest or Behance or like, all these where people actually put up creative work, like he's saying. So go through what's happening around in the creative.
I use Pinterest.
Pinterest is
to
cool.
get
Behance
ideas.
is really cool. So
How did your family react, if I may ask, when you said you wanted to become a graphic designer?
So actually, I started as a photographer. That was more shocking than graphic designer. But my parents always supported me. They were like, if this is what you really want to do, you go ahead with it.
Was it like a Three Idiots kind of moment where you were like made to do something for a while and suddenly you were like, I want to do
No,
photography?
not at all. Very lucky like that. I didn't have that at all. They were like, my father bought me a camera and said, okay, go and study photography. So,
If you weren't allowed, what would you be doing?
that is, I really don't know actually, because for me to arrive at graphic designing, I've also done production for a while. That was something that my family wasn't happy about, because working hours, where are you going? Who are these people? Why are you carrying so many bags? What is happening? So that was like, no, this is not going to happen. So then I kind of pivoted towards graphic designing and now everyone's happy. So yeah.
Madhavraje, what are your thoughts on this?
So a lot of people find it very strange, but I would say it's typical Indian mentality. I mean, when I decided that I wanted to study law, it was a huge battle at home because my dad was an engineer, my uncle is an engineer, and all my grandmother's brothers are engineers, and my grandfather's in finance. So I studied finance. So they said, no way are you going to study arts. Are you a girl? That's what I was told.
They said that.
They said that. And I said, no, I really don't want to do finance. I really don't want to do engineering. and medicine was out of the question.
But law is
I
still
can't-
so much studying and reading and
Yeah, but I mean, like typical Indian parents, right? I mean, you should be doing medicine, engineering, or then finance. But I was like, I don't like maths at all.
And how early in your career did you decide that you want to study law?
Well, I was bad at maths and I was not very good at science, or I didn't enjoy science. Let's say that I didn't enjoy it. So I decided that it was better to go towards the arts. I mean, I did commerce in my 11th and 12th, which was again an uphill battle because my grandmother was like, you should do science and maths. It's like, no way am I going to do science and maths. Please.
But did she have a reason for that, or was it just because the family was?
No, she was like, you'll have more options, which sometimes I do regret not taking maths for my 11th and 12th. But then, I mean, her part was right. I mean, that I would have more options, and maybe if I wanted to do something else later on, not doing maths and science is a hindrance to that.
Right,
but
right.
I didn't want to do anything related to science, so I was quite happy.
Okay, so Isha, I had a question regarding some stuff that I read in my childhood, that princes and princesses have these kind of weird superpowers, and one of them was of a princess to kiss a frog and turn him into a prince. So can you do that?
I wish it worked like that, but unfortunately it doesn't.
The other way around. Okay, so this episode has been much more fun than the previous conversation for sure. At least I think we can conclude that, and I'm happy to still know that my head is still part of my body and you guys haven't done anything of that sort. Okay, is there any kind of social causes that you guys are standing for?
So, other than the schools that all of the royal families have, I am coming up with a project called Anubhuti in Akkalkot. Basically, this project is when I got Anubhuti of Swami Samat Maharaj is when I started this project. In this project, basically what we are doing is we are getting all the things that Akkalkot needs today, and for which I have donated almost 40 acres of my land, and we are raising funds to basically build everything that is not there in Akkalkot today.
Okay, how about you guys? Is there anything else you all are doing?
For us in Bhor, mainly it's the Bhor Education Society. So until very recent, it was only a school till 10th standard, but now we have a junior college over there. We also have a school for deaf and dumb students. And the education over there is such that hopefully after they finish their primary and secondary education, they'll be able to get normal jobs. So it's like a hostel where they're also taught a lot of life skills and things like that. So yeah, mostly around the education is where we are doing a lot of social work.
Okay.
So in Miraj, in the past, we used to do a lot of cash grants and give scholarships and help people in need. But then recently we've realized that that's not as helpful because the government is taking care of that. So we've started an initiative called the Save Miraj City Initiative, where we sort of probe into the things that the government is doing that may or may not be correct or may or may not be legal, and try and counterbalance the deep state, we could say. So that is one of the initiatives. And then, of course, whenever there is need, we help the people. I mean, whether it was in the past when there were riots after the Gandhi assassination, or now when the Krishna River flooded and the entire city was immersed underwater, the palace being on a height served as a roof. The palace grounds were given to the people who needed them to stay while they were rehabilitated and saved.
That's great to hear that you guys actually living up to that image as well outside of your stature. So, and I hope to see you guys on the show ever again. And thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.